Stephen King once mentioned in an interview that his breakthrough moment as a writer didn't come from any writing workshop or creativity seminar. It came from watching a Japanese carpenter methodically preparing his tools before starting work. The carpenter moved with such deliberate precision, clearing his workspace completely before even touching wood, that King realized he'd been approaching writing entirely backwards. This observation led him to discover a 400-year-old Japanese principle that modern neuroscience has now proven to be one of the most effective methods for overcoming creative blocks. What that carpenter was practicing, unknowingly, was the ancient art of mono-no-aware, roughly translated as the pathos of things, or the gentle sadness of impermanence. But here's what's remarkable. This wasn't just philosophical poetry. Recent discoveries in cognitive science reveal that this Japanese approach actually rewires how our brains process creative information. Let's start with something called cognitive load theory, developed by psychologist John Sweller in the 1980s. Sweller discovered that our working memory can only handle about 7 pieces of information at once when we're trying to write and simultaneously worrying about grammar, plot structure, character development, and whether our opening sentence is compelling enough. We're essentially asking our brain to juggle 15 balls while riding a unicycle. This is why most writing advice actually makes writer's block worse. When someone tells you to just start writing or don't worry about perfection, they're adding more cognitive load, not reducing it. Your brain is now processing the original writing task, plus the instruction to ignore quality, plus the anxiety about following advice that feels counterintuitive. The Japanese tea ceremony, perfected over centuries, solved this exact problem. Tea masters learned that true creativity emerges not from trying to do everything at once, but from radical simplification of focus. In the tea ceremony, each movement has one purpose, each tool serves one function, and each moment holds one intention. Modern neuroscience calls this cognitive load reduction, but tea masters were practicing it 4 centuries ago. Here's the key insight. Our brains can't distinguish between physical clutter and mental clutter. When Maya Angelou famously rented bare hotel rooms with nothing but a Bible, thesaurus, and yellow legal pads, she wasn't being eccentric. She was unconsciously applying cognitive load theory. By removing visual distractions, she freed up mental bandwidth for creativity. Now, let's talk about the most counterintuitive discovery of all, what Agatha Christie accidentally stumbled upon while plotting her detective novels. Christie often got stuck midway through writing, not knowing how to continue. Out of desperation, she started a peculiar habit. She would skip to the end and write the final emotional scene first, then work backwards to figure out how her characters got there. What Christie had discovered, without realizing it, was something psychologists now call backwards chaining, a technique from cognitive behavioral therapy that's incredibly effective for overcoming paralysis. When we start with the ending emotion we want to create, our subconscious mind automatically begins organizing information to reach that destination. This connects to another fascinating piece of research. Bluma Zeigarnik, a Russian psychologist, discovered that our brains are naturally wired to keep unfinished tasks active in our memory. The Zeigarnik effect explains why you can remember an interrupted conversation perfectly but forget completed tasks almost immediately. Christie was using this effect in reverse. By creating an unfinished connection between her current scene and her already written ending, she gave her brain a puzzle to solve unconsciously. The genius wasn't in the backwards writing, it was in creating productive incompletion. Let me repeat this crucial point in different terms. Instead of trying to force creativity forward, Christie learned to create a mental vacuum that creativity naturally rushed to fill. This is the essence of mono-no-aware, understanding that the most powerful creative states come from embracing emptiness rather than fighting it. Modern neuroscience explains why this works. When we have a clear endpoint but an unclear path, our brain's default mode network, the same system that generates insights during shower thoughts, becomes highly active. We're essentially hacking our own creativity by giving our subconscious a specific problem to solve. But here's where the Japanese tea ceremony adds the final piece. The most important part of any tea ceremony isn't the tea itself, It's the purification ritual that happens before. Participants wash their hands, rinse their mouths, and mentally reset before entering the tea space. This isn't superstition, it's applied neuroscience. Dr. Teresa Amabile at Harvard Business School found that small ritualistic actions create what she calls psychological clean slates. When we perform the same sequence of simple actions before creative work, we're essentially training our brain to shift into a different mode of thinking. Here's how you can apply these principles immediately. First, create your cognitive sanctuary. Like Maya Angelou's hotel rooms, establish one space that contains only what you need for writing. Remove everything else. This isn't about inspiration, it's about freeing up mental processing power. Second, practice backwards chaining. Before you write a single word, spend 5 minutes writing just the final sentence or paragraph of what you want to create. Don't worry about how you'll get there. Just write the emotional destination. This creates the productive incompletion that your brain will work to resolve. Third, develop your reset ritual. Choose 3 simple physical actions that you'll perform before every writing session. It could be making tea, organizing your pens, or simply taking 5 deep breaths. The specific actions don't matter. The consistency does. You're training your brain to recognize the transition from everyday thinking to creative thinking. Remember, this approach works because it aligns with how your brain naturally operates, rather than fighting against it. As I mentioned earlier, the key insight is radical simplification of focus, letting your mind work on one clear problem at a time. The Japanese tea masters understood something that modern productivity culture often misses. The most profound creativity emerges not from adding more, but from taking away everything unnecessary. When we stop trying to solve everything simultaneously and instead create the right conditions, our natural creativity has space to emerge. That's it for now. Appreciate you tuning in. Subscribe if you haven't already, and see you in the next video.